So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name's Paul Minot, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this Ridesharing Institute conversation, and I'll be your MC for today's conversation. A great international audience we have, 100 people registered and at least 10 different countries. So a fantastic turnout. To kick us off, I'm going to call on Jesse Glazer, a founding board member of the Ridesharing Institute, to say a few words. Jesse works in the US DOT Federal Highways Administration office in Los Angeles and has previously had lots of involvement in ride-sharing initiatives. Jesse.
The Ridesharing Institute is a small, all-volunteer, nonprofit organization that was created in 2011. We are incorporated as a 501c3 in the United States, but our activities are really international in scope. We do support all forms of alternative transportation and the organization and many organizations that are involved advocating for them. However, our mission is to increase the number of carpools and van pools serving commuter trips. Very narrow focus. Carpools and van pools are ongoing trips with longer trip lengths. So they produce large reductions in VMT, GHG, congestion, all the things everyone's familiar with in the near term with relatively small investments. That's why we focus on them. Our efforts are primarily directed towards changing policies at all levels of government and at work sites too, among major employers, to create more carpools and van pools. We invite collaboration. We suggest you look at our website. If you already haven't, you can just do a Google search for Pooling Imperative, and that'll bring you to our website. Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse. So welcome all to this conversation with Christian Amli and Kira Sorensen from Norway and Martin Hovekamp from Germany to tell us the state of pooling in their countries and their surrounding countries also, I think. So here's the format for today's conversation. The order of speaking today is our first speaker is a tag team of Christian Amli and Kira Sorensen. They're co-founders of the Norwegian Carpooling Embassy. This is an organization that provides relevant expertise to startups and international players about the benefits of carpooling in the transport mix. They also maintain an overview and classification of carpooling apps and related technology that they offer as public information. I expect they'll tell you more about this interesting initiative. As well as the Carpooling Embassy, it seems Christian also has a day job. He's an advisor in an IT and advisory company called Bouvet.no, a Norwegian and Swedish listed company on the Oslo Stock Exchange. Rush out and buy some shares right after this. In this role, Christian works for municipalities, counties, and mobility players, including Nabogo.com, a carpooling app that is winning some contracts in Norway. He previously worked for Karma Technology and is currently doing market research and carpool projects for Nabogo. And Kira is a mobility and Internet of Things advisor. So thanks, Christian and Kira, for being prepared to speak with us.
Okay, can you hear us?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot for inviting us to present here. It's an honor with all these knowledge and expertise present. So thank you for listening to us. We're going to talk about carpooling up north. We're going to tell you a little bit of the story of the Norwegian Carpool Embassy and also a little bit of how Norway and Nordics works and a bit of history about carpooling here. And we're also going to cover quite briefly, since it's 15 minutes, and maybe leave more time for questions about the status in Denmark and Norway. And as you mentioned, I have an affiliation with Karma in the US. I worked for them 1 year, and at the moment I'm working for Nabogo. But I'm also having this position as a volunteer and non-profit and working for all carpool companies or initiatives getting in touch with us. And I can tell you it's been a lot the last 8 years.
Yeah, happy 4th of May Day. May the force be with you. And there's a reason why R2D2 always joins, because it's more fun to carpool. He always joins the ship.
So at the Norwegian Carpooling Embassy, we have now battled for more than 10 years. We started the institute in 2014, and we did a lot of work before that, trying to map out what players are available in the world, and how should the distribution of work be between apps and government and public transport authorities. So we're a non-profit, meaning it has cost us a lot over the years. We're funding this on our own salaries. And I have been doing a lot of extra driving to pick up passengers, or being a passenger in to destinations where I'm not actually going, just for the experience. And in Bergen, we have a special problem with pollution, where we have something called temperature inversion. I think it's also present in Paris, meaning that exhaust is captured under a cold layer of air. So we've been driving a lot of special cars. I have a car like this for 10 years. It's a Norwegian EV I bought in 2006, and I've been driving that since. And this is us signing. Well, actually, this car, we were quite young when we made this Carpool Embassy. So what we do at the Carpool Embassy is that we are supportive of all kinds of carpooling initiatives. If it's a Facebook group, or if you're using your thumb and just making your own cardboard sign, everything is within our domain. So some of the characteristics in Norway is that we have actually the world's first HOV lane, as high occupancy vehicle line, only for electric vehicles. And we have high trust between people in Norway. We have quite tech savvy users. We have a lot of cars. People are it's a car oriented country with a lot of bad weather, and we have high salaries and buy new cars. Biking is on the rise, but still not very popular. And the funding of public transport is quite high, and the public transport office is pretty good in Norway. It's of a high standard. But we have a situation with Norwegian stiffness. We're not very talkative and not very socially engaging. But we do have a lot of toll roads and quite heavy tolls. But we also have a term called dugnad, meaning that we're pitching in or building barns together and stuff like that. So it can be easy to recruit people to contribute. So a special other situation with EVs, and now it's approaching 40% of the cars in Bergen are EVs, and over 90% of new sold cars are EVs. So we're leading the world, and they all have inboard screens.
We want to use those screens for something, but we're not sure if it's possible, but it's an idea.
So we saw that carpooling had a comeback in 2010 when we had this ash stuck situation. You couldn't fly because the ash from the eruptions were in the air. So people had to turn to cars and share cars. So that was kind of a restart of carpooling, because it's in the world, it's in decline normally. But what we've been doing is we've been monitoring the market quite closely, and been in contact with, I don't know, close to 50 to 100 carpool systems globally, and invited them to Norway eagerly, and also put them in contact with the governments and stuff like that. And the Norwegian Public Roads Authority also pitched in 2010 as shared experience, or both positive and negative, that the roads authorities started doing carpooling, but they exited in 2016. So we are trying to build a standard, so please help us. We're on GitHub, and you will probably find a link afterwards in this meeting notes. So please help us make a standard for carpooling. So we had an uptick in 2022 at the PTA Public Transport Conference, where session number 1 was called Carpooling Finally Mature. We had presentations from myself. We had Kasper from Nabogo from Denmark, and we had a Norwegian startup with quite a good success before COVID. And we also had people from Spond, which is an activity tracker and organizer, which is quite known globally, actually, from Norway. And all were circling around carpooling. So it was large stage to be on. And what's going on in Denmark?
Yeah.
There are at least 4 technologies in play. There's Nabogo, and there's Tame from TDM, which is the Danish Auto Association. And there's Commute App, and we should always start with talking about GoMore, because GoMore is the long distance carpool app in Denmark, which is very well known, and they have now their name is on lights on large buildings in Copenhagen, the main capital. And the minister has been out carpooling and promoting carpooling in Denmark. So there's a variety of apps, and they're targeting different kind of user groups. And our knowledge is mostly about what's going on with Nabogo, since we're working with them also in Norway on our day job. So the status in Norway, there will be some Danish text here, but the rise of the figures is quite dominant, and you can see the corridors on the image to the right, and those corridors are also corresponding to the municipalities who are in agreement with Nabogo. They have managed something that is now a game changer since 2019. There are 2 game changers, I think, in Europe right now on carpooling, and that is your agreement is with the public authorities or the municipality, and you're integrating business-wise and information-wise with the travel planners. And here you can see the Danish travel planner, national travel planner called Reiseplanen. And you can tick off if you want to see carpooling in your travel options, which is fantastic for the spread of this phenomenon. And Nabogo has an agreement with over 70 educational institutions, and they're now cutting in rural areas in Denmark 1 hour per trip of travel time for kids outside city centers. And this is an overview of the customers they're targeting. And the business model is they're not taking a cut from the cost from passenger to driver. They're a public offer like the normal bus would be. So you get access to this offer by either paying for each trip or having period ticket. And also you can see there is a physical infrastructure now in Denmark where all the meeting points, or not all, but some and more meeting points are added to the bus stops and selected meeting points. Mathilde?
Yeah.
And you can look at the you can understand some Danish, you understand budget, and you understand real. And the blue ones is the actual trips, and the budget trip is the projections. So we're targeting 200,000 or 178,000 trips next year.
And we also heard, about Lego, that they are doing good with carpooling. They have a lot of activity. So you all know about them, I guess.
Yeah, the kids play stuff called Lego. The company is situated in the middle of a field far from the cities, and they are using Nabogo to get their workers to work every day. So
back to Norway.
Switch to Norway for the last 5 minutes. So there are 3 apps active in Norway. It's Nabogo, which is the kind of commercial and large one with 2 campaigns active. There's a startup in southern Norway called Penguin Up, and another one, from Oslo, which is called Ride. Just to mention all active that we know of. So there are 2 active campaigns. I will show you pictures from one of the launches on next slide, I think. And Trondheim is starting in August. That's our 3rd largest city. And the travel planner in Norway is already added to Nabogo. And now we're waiting for the reverse integration, meaning that we can see the carpools in the national travel planner.
We've been trying that for a long time to get.
Yeah.
We've
been suggesting this for years, and now there's some progress in this. So this is the PTA in Drammen launching carpooling with their largest hospital, and you can then access carpooling through their normal tickets. And this is us out in the field, not just using our brains and stuff. We're also using our feet and hands and talking to nurses and doctors what carpooling is and recruiting people for it. So we're heavily motivated by what's going on in France, where they have now, from 1st of January, they're receiving 150 million euro in incentives earmarked for carpooling. And they're paying now 1,000 kroner, which is what is it, 100 euro, approximately $100. If you carpool 10 times, you get $25 for the first trip, and then you get $75 for your 10th trip. So everything that you do 10 times might be habits like jogging or swimming or carpooling. So they looked at their data that they should incentivize 10 trips to make it a habit. And they also added in 50 million euros. Then they're matching local funding for carpool campaigns. So you can see there's a spike in activity back to the pre-COVID growth rates, which is very high. And they're now past 1 million trips per month in France, and they're on a steady growth. And you can look in detail where this is happening and on what day and in which region through this link. So this data is downloadable from the French government, and I have asked my colleagues to put it into this Power BI data discovery system for carpooling in France.
So we would have wished for the same in Norway, but still we got some wins, small wins, like the city assembly wants to stimulate carpooling and give away the free tolling. The tolling is really expensive in Norway, so could be a good thing, but we're just waiting for it.
Yeah, I think in parts of Norway, you pay $20 for your tolling. So the outlook in Norway is that we now have a prominent app, which is Nabogo from Denmark, which has a solid business model, meaning that its user will not cut it out because there's no money lost from passenger to driver. It's the municipality or the PTA who's picking up the tab and also getting the benefits of more people than buying these tickets. So there's a lot of interest in Norway now on what's going on in Drammen and Trondheim. And we're so happy for this initiative where we can learn and copy and steal with pride from other countries and other technologies. And our goal in Norwegian Carpooling Embassy is have what is promille, not percent, of all new road costs should be funneled to our organization.
Or to the cause, at least.
Why not say us? So this is us. My title is a carpool fire soul. I've been, it's kind of almost a diagnose for me since 2010. And Kira has been very active and enthusiastic for this. And we've been both traveling and talking and testing and publishing about carpooling in Norway since, a long time ago. So thank you for your time and listening to us.
Well, and thank you for your incredible timing. Fantastic presentation. You just got 5 minutes for clarifying questions. You mentioned access to carpooling through normal ticket. What do you mean by a normal ticket, and what does that really mean?
In Norway, when we have digital ticketing for most public transport. We do not use coins or money on the bus or in
cards.
Or any cards. We use our app because the spread of smartphones is so large. So if you have a ticket for the bus, meaning costing you maybe $80 a month, you can register that ticket in the Carpool app, and then you will be able to carpool for free as much as you want to. Meaning that the driver will receive like 10 cents per kilometer, and having that as a payout. So the why I see it's free, that when you have a PTA ticket, a transit ticket, you can register that with the app and then carpool as much as you want.
So currently it's not like that everywhere.
No, it's just in Drammen at the moment.
Yeah.
And
okay.
In Denmark.
Okay, but the point is that public transport funding is being paid through to carpool drivers.
Correct.
Through that mechanism at 10 cents per kilometer. Thank you.
Yeah.
We've got three people with other clarifying questions. So let's move on. Keach Ballard, please.
I was just wondering, you didn't say anything about Oslo. Is Oslo off limits, or you were just focusing on Bergen because that's where you are?
We're focusing a lot on Bergen because where we are, and it's the greatest city, of course. But Drammen is next to Oslo, It's just a 30-minute drive from Oslo. Norway is not that big in the southern Norway. And the reason why they haven't started is maybe the PTA is a bigger organization, meaning it has longer processes and a larger impact. So they're now waiting for the results of their neighbor city before launching in Oslo. And an interesting thing is that the Nabogo's concept is to provide carpooling in the rural areas, meaning that the district carpooling is more of a value for people than in city center where there's a high frequency bus. So the slogan is to bring high frequency large city PTA offer to the rural areas.
And in Oslo, it's kind of good, really good public transport, and then it's also getting really good to bike. So the bike share is going really up.
Okay, thanks for that. John Niles, you've got a question.
Could we get a quick summary of how the carpooling works operates in a travel app? If I choose to take the bus, I kind of know I have to go to the bus stop and the bus goes from A to B. How does that work with carpooling? Does it tell you where to go, or how far in the arrangement of the carpool does it go from the travel app as a starting point?
Yes, when you look in the travel app and find the different options, when you then select a carpool option, you will be directed to a meeting point, which is normally a bus stop or a suitable place like a shop or what do you call it, a main junction where there are buses, trains, or shops. So yes, you do have to walk something, but it's very easy and dynamic to add more stops according to the activities. So but they're using the stop-based carpooling, meaning you're not picked up at your home address. You have to seek out your nearest meeting point. But it's very normal that when you have an agreement to meet somewhere, that the users have a dialogue to if it's better to meet somewhere else, like the end of the forest, then you go there instead and have an enjoyable walk instead of have to go to the bus stop.
Thank you.
Jesse, you've got your hand up.
Yes, I later in our discussion, I do want to explore what's going on in France and with the idea of 10 trips, creating a habit. There's some similar experience here, but that's for later. Clarification about travel planner, piggybacking on John's question. Is that similar to what we have here in the United States, the Google Maps and Waze? Is that correct? It's generally available to the whole population at no cost to use the information? Am I understanding correctly?
Yes, I believe so. You can. It's similar. So we also use Google Maps to find public transit office, but you can't buy a ticket there. So normally the state in Europe makes their own
National public
travel planner, where there's access to ticketing included. So you find your travel offer and you then go on to buy the tickets also, and it can plan your entire journey with trains and boats and buses, and now also soon in Norway, including carpooling. So yes, it's a similar experience, but you can go even further in Norway and in France. In France, you can buy for buses and trains and carpooling now in the same app. And when you find the French app is named perhaps BlaBlaCar Daily, and when you then press the button, you will be directed into that app, and then complete the transaction with that app and your profile in that system. So
thank you. That's great. I wish we had that in the US.
Thank you. I think we're up to time on the 5 minutes for clarifying questions. Sorry for the folks who missed that. We'll get it in the general discussion. We will switch now and have our next speaker, Martin Hobekamp. Martin has a background as a computer scientist and worked for over 30 years as an IT professional with the Hewlett-Packard Company. He's a co-founder and member of the board for the last 2 years of the German Carpooling Association, Mitfahrverband, in Berlin and Germany generally. And I think Martin might be helped by a couple other people from his organization, so he will introduce them if needed. Martin, please go ahead with your presentation.
Thanks a lot. Hello, good morning, good evening from Germany. My name is Martin Hofkamp from Germany, yes. I will present in the name of the Mitfahrverband, the Carpooling Association for Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. I will focus on the German aspects, but we will see some similarities for the other countries too. With me is Robin Weidner, also founder and board member of the Carpooling Association, who helped to prepare this presentation. He's joining from the Netherlands. We want to display the status quo of state of pooling, and we're also going to give a lookout at what we envision for the future. And for today, we use the terms ride-sharing and carpooling interchangeable. But first, welcome to Germany, to the land of mobility. Several important inventions happened here. About 200 years ago, Karl von Drais invented the first bike, a kind of running machine known as Draisine. And later that century, Karl Benz introduced the first automobile, the patent motor car. And if you look at the picture, you will see the seats, and you can recognize it was already a car built for ride sharing. So it's not a one seat, but multiple seats. So looking at today's mobility in Germany, we see the most favorite mobility option by far is using a car. The model split in number of trips displays that more than 50% of all trips use a car. In terms of kilometer distances, cars are even more dominant at about 75%. Germany is well known for its strong automotive industry, as you can see from the logos down here. And still, many of the German Autobahn freeways have no speed limits yet. Today, there's a bit shift towards electric cars and a bit to car-sharing vehicles. But overall, carpooling is still at a very low 3.6% of all trips done on a daily basis. So next is public transport, which is about 22% of the trips, followed by bike usage at 11%, and by feet at about 10%. We see some trend, like in Norway, to more biking, especially e-bikes in the recent years, and several bicycle highways have been built here in Germany. The most recent change for the public transport is that from this month on, we have a new Germany ticket that has been introduced as a local public transport option at a flat rate for about 50 euros per month, after long discussions in politics. A similar climate ticket was introduced in Austria about 2 years ago. And Switzerland, you might know, is well known for railway country for a long time. The need for a mobility transformation to achieve the global climate goals as defined in the Paris Agreement is known for long. But for Germany, the transport sector is not on track at all. For some time, we see public discussions now and more protests by civil groups. The demands are for more public transport, more active modes, less domestic flights, less individual car use, and car speed limits. A recent research study of the Umweltbundesamt, that's a German environment agency, calculates about 5% reductions by introducing some kind of speed limit. Most of our neighboring countries already have similar speed limits in place. This same study shows that an increased car occupancy rate of 2 persons per car would have a much higher impact already of about 15% CO2 reductions. And this goes along with a 22% reduced driving time, mainly because then there would be no more traffic jams. But these findings about the positive effects of higher car occupancy rate are not widely discussed in the public. Instead, the hot topic is just about speed limits for Germany. Please, on the chart here, find the current car occupancy rate figures in the chart. Please note that for commuters, the rate is at a much lower level than in general, the average. So for commuters, it's just even below 1.1 person per car here in Germany. Looking back upon the recent history of ride-sharing development in the past decades, we notice some changes over time. In the analog world of the 1980s and before, hitchhiking was quite a common practice all over Europe, actually. During my studying time in the 80s, increasing number of carpooling bulletin boards and agencies were established, at least in the bigger cities, especially where universities are located. With the digital world becoming more mainstream in the 1990s, several kinds of digital boards took over, using different techniques, but web-based boards became dominant over time. Then with the rise of smartphones, these digital boards entered the mobile app world, and still today we see new apps come and go. To help companies and other authorities finding suitable ride-sharing solutions for their people, a few consultancy services started offering holistic mobility management solutions. And about 10 years ago, we noticed a new analog ride-sharing method popping up in rural areas of Germany where public transport is insufficient. These are ride-sharing benches, and we're going to have a look in a few minutes. All of the new development come with some pitfalls. Free digital boards worked fairly well until 2010. But when platform introduced user payment systems, which were supported by financial investors, this distorted the market. Next, with the many agencies and apps, which all compete in silos, the critical mass for users is not met, and people are frustrated with not finding good ride-sharing matches given the many platforms, and we currently have no regulation in that market. Also, the increasing number of communities building their own ride-sharing benches is causing a bit of trouble because people don't recognize a common use model and signage. And then in 2019, the COVID pandemic came and teared down a lot of the ride-sharing solutions for some time. And at this time, we grouped together and founded the Carpooling Association as a non-profit organization. So in 2021, we founded it mainly for the German-speaking countries, Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. For now, we have about 35 members. About half of them entered it as natural persons, like Robin and myself. And the other half is about companies or non-profit organizations, all related to ride-sharing. The main purpose and goal of the Carpool Association is knowledge transfer on the one hand and integration on the other hand. So we explore ride-sharing potentials for sustainable mobility and the social impact for the society. This is mainly communication work at all levels. The integration work stream looks after connecting agencies and platforms horizontally, and also integrate public transport and mass systems vertically. And another target of integration is the infrastructure. So we are looking for in-car and public transport vehicles, as well as the public space. So we strive for common standards for in digital and analog dimensions. In terms of communication and politics, this is the status quo. We have several members who are active in past or current research projects or funding programs. And this list is not complete that I put here. Our Carpooling Association is releasing opinion statements like the recent one about France, which we regard as a role model for a new carpooling policy, at least in Germany. We established some political exchange at federal and state level. And besides that, we offer talks, meetings, and we promote ride-sharing topics in social media. To better prepare for the future, we identify the demand for research topics, and we formulate public requirements, and we want to intensify the exchange with the politics. For example, we see the need to define a sustainable financial model for ride-sharing agencies. So this is actually very interesting what we learned today from Norway and other countries. Now let's have a look at the analog ride-sharing infrastructure that we find out in our countries. The new analog concept of the ride-sharing bench was introduced about 10 years ago in 2014. Typically, it's just a bench alongside the road where people take a seat and wait for some spontaneous rideshare when some driver stops and offers a lift to some local target like a supermarket, the next town, or bus stop, or train station. Some benches do provide directional signs to indicate the desired direction. We guess, meanwhile, there must be far more than 1,000 ride-sharing benches, most in rural areas. They have a rich variety in color, signage, and use models. Some benches have been registered on maps, as you see here. Others might be just lost or inactive by now. Therefore, as a Carpool Association, we started a new project, Mitverband 2.0, funded by a non-profit foundation, Fideo, here in Germany. So we work on knowledge management, common appearance with the M sign, and introducing digital means to secure and evaluate the use of benches. And as a first step, we evaluated what benches are currently already registered in the OpenStreetMap map. So this chart displays for the different states in Germany how over time new benches were added to that map. Other analog infrastructure to support ridesharing in Germany is the following. First is a rideshare disk. That's a concept Robin has introduced at what we call Mitfahrscheibe, similar to a parking disk on a parking space. Then we have several states in Germany that have already built park and pool spaces, which are labeled P and M, where M stands for Mitfahren, so ride-sharing or carpooling. And at least in Germany and Switzerland, we have now an official traffic sign that would allow to define ride-sharing lanes, so HOV lanes. But as of now, actually only Switzerland has a few. So for the future, we envision to improve the analog infrastructure in certain regards, establishing a universal traffic sign for ride-sharing. So that was very interesting to see that from Norway already. Building collective maps for the ride-sharing stops, improving park and pool spaces with dedicated ride-sharing stops, and include some digital features there as well. Then introducing ride-sharing, driving lanes, HOV lanes, and having safe spaces to stop. So pick-off and drop-off zones everywhere, basically. For Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, we have collected more than 70 ride-sharing solutions. See the logos on our homepage for details. I cannot display all of them here. There's a rich diversity in terms of different features they promote. Some solutions look at long distances, others look at regular commuters. Many offer digital matching ahead of time, and there are also a few ones that do it location-based, ad hoc matching, almost close to real time. And some are free for the users, others are paid to the driver, even just for offering a ride. Some use closed user groups, some are open for all. Today, still most solutions are isolated with just their own data pool. And we want to offer integration interfaces to overcome these silo structures. We are not as lucky as in France, but because we don't have any nationwide registration for all the ride sharing happening. So fortunately, we have here a figure from Bonn. These figures display the monthly registered carpool rides for one agency during an introduction phase in the recent months. And for reference, there's a Paris region on the left where this ride sharing was introduced in 2016. So a major step forward for digital solutions is a new development of a ride-sharing integration backend system. Recently, the Amarillo architecture was developed by and implemented by some members to integrate all the ride-sharing offerings from different connected agencies into one database using standard interfaces. So one interface is then used to integrate with the public transport providers. And just this last month, the M-Fund project Miteinander was started here in Germany, in Munich, with a public transport provider there to integrate ride-sharing into their app. for the beginning, it's just 2 agencies that are included, but it's open for all parties later on. And we plan similar for Baden-Württemberg, another state here where I live. The Amarillo architecture, that's even implemented with MaaS platforms. Like we have some outstanding ones, StatNavi and BBNavi in certain states here. All is based on open standard and open data. But just to give you an idea what a front end could look like, we can go into details if you want later. And there's a few visionary views at the end here display how we imagine ridesharing as a semi-public transport option in the future. Fully integrated in the public spaces and in all vehicles. So perhaps as a native in-car app or other implementations, supporting planned and spontaneous ride-sharing in future. And we believe that this is, when that happens, a must feature or must point needs to be that for the users, it's easy to use, it's secure and reliable overall. And then I guess we will be successful. Yeah, these are the topics which we work on as an organization. And when we work on it and complete here, we look for a promising future. So thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Fantastic. Clara, any clarifying questions before we get into a more general discussion? Any questions for Martin?
I have a quick question. Martin, could you say a little bit more about that ride-sharing disc you mentioned? Is that like a decal? And if so, what benefits does it deliver to the users?
That disc is actually like a parking disc where you, in Germany at least, where you put in the hour when you came. But for the ride-sharing disc, you put in the hour where you plan to leave from this place. So other people see it on the car and now, oh, this guy is going to leave in about 1 hour to this location, so I can come back here an hour and join for a ride. That's the basic idea.
Is that a mobile app? Is that correct?
No, that's a really analog paper which you put in your car.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. That was really interesting presentation. I have one question about the bench, the ride-sharing bench. Is there any issues about safety or security with people just, sitting there or, getting picked up by people they don't know and so on?
Yeah, there are at least concerns about this. So that's why we want to now with the new project 2.0 also add some digital means so that you can choose when you enter the car to check in basically and get this car drive registered for some time. So to be on the safe side that if something happens, it can be detected later on with whom you were joining for the journey.
Are these benches well used?
It's actually not really known. There are criticism that they are rarely used, but it's hard to tell. And that's also one goal we want to find out to measure how well they are used. Can't really say. People say, I never see someone sitting there, but that could mean if somebody sits there, he is picked up quite fairly fast. It's really hard to tell for now. But we see a lot of communities are interested in building these up. But to be honest, I think many are not managed well. So that's why we also want to consult the communities here, how to do it right.
Okay,
thank you. Yeah.
Okay, let's open a general discussion then with all of our speakers. If you have any comment or question, if you have a comment, keep it brief, please. But let's have a conversation based on what we've heard. A lot of fantastic information.
I'm interested in getting comments from both of the presenters about the use of payments as rewards, if you will, to drivers from either the government or from the passengers in the vehicle. That's something we really don't do here in the United States. And there are some tax laws that discourage that as well. So that's one potential we could use here. Could you both elaborate a little bit more about who's doing that, which countries, what are their policies, especially I guess in France. So for both of you, could you say more about that, how well it works, etc.? Is it effective?
Yeah, I can start perhaps. For Germany, we don't have any incentives by the government yet, but cost sharing is no problem between driver and passengers. So to a certain limit, there's no tax issue with paying some of the costs. It's actually, there's a guideline to how much it could be. I think 10 cents is pretty much fine anyhow per kilometer, but it shouldn't be bigger than, I guess, 30 cents per kilometer, because then it turns into a business for the driver. So he shouldn't make any business from this.
Thank you. Christian?
Yes, in Norway, it's the same. I can't speak for France, but I assume it's no tax issues there. But it's in Denmark and Norway, it's not a tax issue if you receive money compensation for driving. It's not payment. You will never get rich by driving because the cost is like 4 times higher than what you get as a benefit. And the reason why there's a compensation is not necessarily for the driver. Feedback from drivers is that they're doing this out of community sense and environmental aspect, and the money is a positive side effect. It's mainly because of the passengers that they're not feeling that they're leeching on their other people in the community, that they're paying a fair share. And it's also connected to supporting your local public transport agency. It means that you're upholding the bus offers for kids and elderly or people going to work in the low-income sectors, meaning, so you're contributing by carpooling, and everything is organized by, the payment is organized and no hassle, it's automatic.
Yeah, hello, Kasper from NaboGo. Yeah, Martin, thank you for for a great presentation. Also, of course, Christian, but we know you. These benches you mentioned, I'm a big fan in some sense of the benches. They have actually crossed the border into Denmark. First in southern Denmark, from Sønderborg into Sønderborg, where I'm originally from, which is right on the German border. And for us as a carpool provider, it's great with all these analog installations, because we are working with set meeting points for our service in rural districts. So one of our challenges, of course, is that where do you meet? Where do you have a safe meeting between a driver and a passenger in a village setting? And all of a sudden, these benches are popping up. And for us, it's very easy to put in the digital layer that provides safety around the benches. So a bigger fan what we are seeing in Germany, and hope that we can import more of the analog things that are going on there. I can maybe add though that the benches themselves are standing completely empty in the municipalities if there's no digital solution supporting them.
Yeah.
So we really need both sides in order to get these benches populated, because I also just hitchhiked in the 90s with that system, but it's sort of it's not considered safe anymore.
Right. Yeah,
Thank
you
you.
made good remarks. Thanks. And actually, one of our members is actually located in Flensburg, so just on the Danish border. So where they've put a lot of these benches out. Yeah, you're absolutely right with your comments. And we hope to define a standard now where all these benches are eventually visible on maps and being used for the apps as well in digital world.
Perfect. Thanks.
Okay. Christian, you've got your hand up.
Thank you. And that was to you, Martin, on the overview of the benefits of carpooling compared to other measures. I think that was a great setup, and I think we should iterate on that. And also for everyone who participates now and not participated last time, I think the statistics from Ali Claiborne in the UK on the full success of walking and biking, how much will that reduce climate exhaust in the UK? And the figure is 6%. And if everyone who could go by public transport did so, it was only 10% reduction in the commute emissions. But carpooling was offering 35% reduction in emissions if the full potential was reached. And this needs to be iterated towards local authorities as a way to quickly achieve our goals. We can only manage them if we go together and add carpooling to biking and walking and public transport. So thank you for that statistics, and that's in please see the video from Ali Claburn from the UK from last time and Anna Skerken from France from last time. It's a great video. Thank you so much, Paul and the team, for organizing that last session. It was very insightful.
Thanks, Christian. Any other questions or comments? And we're not shutting off. I know some people have to leave for other meetings, but please just keep the conversation going. John Nile.
Could we get a little detail from the various countries on what some strong employer programs? Lego was mentioned to just talk through the strongest employer program you've seen and what are they doing and what are they getting out of it in terms of performance for their employees.
I can maybe talk on Lego, since we are operating their carpool scheme there with Nabucco. Since we come from the public sector, carpooling was actually introduced into Lego in a partnership with the local municipality of Vejle, which is also very close to where our business HQ is in Denmark. Basically, the municipality of Vejle paid for a scheme because they are suffering from congestion in the city, which is located at a fjord, and then you have the company of Lego dislocated about 20 kilometers outside of the city, and there's a lot of transit traffic going through the city because of the geography with the, I would call it a valley, not a deep valley, but a valley deep enough that all road traffic goes through the city. So basically, the Lego initiative is funded by the municipality to offset transit traveling through the city by introducing carpooling. Lego is a partner to this program, so they are putting all their channels available, and we also converted some Facebook groups they already had to organize carpooling. Because of their location, they attract workers from a distance for about 100 kilometers from more distant cities like Aarhus, Vejle, also from Flensburg in Germany, into this site. So it has become a quite rapid and instant success with carpooling, also because it is free without fees for the employees, and because of this strong incentive from the municipality, we are able to introduce also a reduced fare. So we actually subsidize each and every trip with what is equivalent to, what is it, $1.50 US, 1.5 euro cents for each trip. So that's a direct subsidy that the driver gets, and in return the passenger gets the first 10 kilometers for free in that scheme. Over time, we think that Lego will start chipping in to this party because the scheme is growing quite rapidly, and they are building parking lots as we speak, because everybody bought Lego under COVID-19, and they keep selling and increasing the headquarters and production facilities here in Denmark. So we are in a dialogue now with them to invest in behavioral change instead of more parking lots at their headquarters. And I think it's becoming obvious for them that they can save lots of money if they divert their infrastructure budget into someone like us.
Brilliant. Thank you, Casper.
I think similar to Lego, my name's Marjorie. I work for a company that provides commuter benefits, and I work with a number of clients. But similar to Lego, in terms of incentivizing carpool drivers will receive a bonus that's paid out through payroll deduction.
Thanks, Marjorie. Larry's got his hand up.
Yes, thank you. In this country, in the US, the pandemic caused a major decline in transit ridership. As we come out of this, a lot of the transit agencies are really trying to bring back ridership, and we're seeing some opposition to promoting carpooling and so on, as taking away passengers from transit. Are you seeing that, Martin or Christian, in your countries? Is that affecting your partnerships with transit agencies?
I myself don't have first-hand experience, but I hear that. But I believe it's different. It's the opposite, basically. I believe people who are willing to participate in ride-sharing, they're most likely also customers for public transport, because they are not bound to just ride-sharing. They see it as one flexible option in addition to the standard public transport. So we position our solution as a semi-public transport.
I can 100% support that. That is our business model, and also the key to, I guess, success, actually surviving the pandemic. We did have contracts already with PTAs before the pandemic, and actually now, since the economy in traditional public transportation, especially in the rural districts, have deteriorated, with still lacking 15% of all passengers, are the figures we have here in Denmark, means that they are actually very actively setting in purchasing seats from us and purchasing incentive schemes to set in carpool drivers in areas where buses no longer run. So the latest contract we are now doing, we are taking over a bus line which will now be closed because there are only in average 3 persons in this 50-person bus, and we can deliver frequencies of 5-10 minutes runs on this route in rush hour. So this is our business, to deliver something more effective. And we also, and I feel I really want to share this because we also had some figures just coming out, actually from the bus route traveling between the city of Vejle and the city of Billund, or the town of Billund, where Legoland, Lego headquarters and the airport is located. The bus runs with half-hourly runs, and that there was a fear from the PTA that we would take the passengers from this fairly popular bus. What happened instead was that now employees at Lego, they have 2-minute frequencies in rush hours to get from the city to the workplace. The bus is part of that mixture. We show the bus on the app. We have attracted a lot of new users to that bus. So right now, as the average is index 85, a 15% loss in passengers across the southern region of Denmark. That particular line is the only one with growth. It has an 8% passenger growth since 2019. The next best line in the whole region is at index 95. So I really have some strong data now, also proven the case that if we give good enough services to people with high frequencies, they will become flexible mobilists. They will use bus carpooling to the benefit of all mobility forms.
That's great. Do you have that information available, showing that?
Yeah, I can share it in like a PowerPoint. I have it directly from the PTA.
Oh, great! Thank you.
Yeah, just give me
very helpful here.
I will give my email in the chat, and then I can share it with you.
Christian.
I'd like to answer the question as well from Larry, if there's an anxiety for losing traffic to carpooling, and that's a very good question. And I think the PTAs that we are talking to and politicians as well in the public transit area are afraid of this. But people who have been looking at it for some time, and the majority is positive and see the benefit of carpooling. There is a minority who is afraid of it, and they're anxious how this will play out. So it definitely is a factor that we're trying to work with, to make people understand it. But there's so many conceptions around transport habits that are kind of demagogic and not based on facts and real complete weekly or monthly transport mix from on the user side. But when you look at it from that side, how people are actually mixing up their commutes, the data tells you that adding carpooling would also add biking and walking and public transit and working from home, since you don't have to use your car every day to make the most out of your investment. So it's a struggle, and it's a negative factor, but my impression now that it's slowly changing, and the majority values the added carpooling offer for the commuters.
That's great. Thank you. I was just wondering if you could, what do you think you would need to really further carpooling in your countries? What is the key thing? Is it greater support from your governments? Is it incentive programs? Is it some kind of uniform app? Or what do you think are the critical sort of elements of fostering carpooling in your countries that you haven't been able to get?
I have my mic open, so I start. I think political support, yes, that's very important, because there's no awareness really, or not high enough awareness in Germany, and perhaps in other countries as well. And the other point I see, the promotion of the platform we have established. We talked about this Amarillo, which is a connection integration backend. Pretty new, and we need to onboard basically all the platforms to have a better user experience. So we need a better user experience here in Germany because of the many apps that are confusing for the users, and so adoption rate is too little. Christian, you want to add some?
Yes. So the success criteria that we see is that number one is it has to be the right setup of division of jobs, who does what. Like the NPRA can't make their own app. It needs to be a private-public partnership where the public does its job and regulates and incentivizes and collects data and shares data. But there's private operators who does the job of doing the matching or counting of the drives. So that's number one, that there's no kind of don't go Soviet style do it or free market do it. The right setup of each body's work on each level. So that's number one. Now technology is mature. It's and the apps are flourishing. There's like 80 apps in France and 60 apps in German-speaking languages. So that market is now mature. So the next is the understanding of campaigning and doing growth hacking. The PTA sector is kind of 100 years old and use 100 years old operation excellence work instead of innovation work. So doing innovations in that domain is quite difficult because there's so little experience on it. They're not launching new products and reiterating and learning from that experience. So I think Mr. Jan Bosch from Sweden has the BAPO model, business, architecture, process, and then organization, instead of the other way around. Don't hire 10 guys and don't start buying technology and then find out how you're going to operationalize it. So doing things in the right sequence is very important. And there's so many misconceptions. So having a campaign and just start driving, have your PTA do the first 100 trips, ask them why they're not doing it themselves. If they want the public to do it, why shouldn't they do it themselves? So it's very close to our heart to do it and walk the talk and not just sit with PDFs. You can't learn to swim by reading PDFs or websites. And the same with carpooling. You won't understand it until you have carpooled with 10 nurses. Then you get a sort of a grasp on what this is about. So all the technical integration stuff in the background that Martin spoke about, and the GTF's format, that's super. And someone asked, what's PTA? Public Transport Authority, people who are responsible for the bus service or public transport offer in your area.
Thanks, Christian.
Yeah, and we have big funding for new roads. So if we can like get 1 per mille for using the road better, that would be really good. At least one place, one example that they actually try to use some money on that area just to make the road more worth.
Thanks, Kira. Casper.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on this question also, because this is what I dream of. Where we are right now, we are doing a societal cost calculation on what is actually the societal costs or benefits of carpooling. So this means that we are now calculating what should the public sector and the private, for that sake, spend on carpooling, because right now we are spending lots of funds on roads that are unnecessary, on bridges and parking lots, but also we are damaging, of course, the cities with waste of time. All these things we know about. So really, I think 1 per mille is way too little. Actually, I think we should just take behavioral change seriously, and make the budgets for that. Also in Denmark, there's a proud tradition of bringing in a highway to any village. It's a political discussion all the time. Also, our village needs a four-way highway to create growth. Well, that fund, what else could we use it for? And if it's a matter of congestion, well, just as we all know, there are lots of technical solutions. Just create the market, put some funds in there, and we will solve that. It's absolutely no problem. And then I just want to direct the attention to Wales. I had a really interesting talk from the state of Wales, where they have stopped all road building instantly. They have stopped it because it does not comply with their climate change ambitions and the political ambitions within mobility. So they have simply paused what you can call this super trend of us continuously funding roads, green stamping it. And that has led to very interesting budgets, because they acknowledge that there's a mobility problem. So they are building alternative plans to solve the mobility problems. And that is investments in PT, but it's also investments in carpooling and all kinds of things that can solve the problem at hand with another means of just building a new flyover or something, which is very expensively and harmful to the policies that they already have.
Thanks, Casper. That's fantastic. Robin, you've got your hand up.
I want to bring in one response of a conversation we had once from somebody who was running like a ride-sharing bench in a rural area in Germany. And she was really angry. And she said, our municipality has to take the ride-sharing as a serious mobility concept. We want to get heard. We want to get financed. We want to be visible. And we need to bring this into as a seen for granted mobility solution. And in terms of communication, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of analog and digital infrastructure, in terms of communication, that it's not forbidden, that it's something wanted. And I think it was so great to having this chat, and it underlined especially really what we are in Germany also like aiming for, to make it official, to make even the signs and everything as seen as kind of standard, and to work for the government in a way to say, hey, we need to be official. So we speak the official language in terms of shapes, in terms of techniques, in terms of analog infrastructure, in terms of colors, in terms of hardware. We do work what should be done from the government in making this system official. They need to understand, and if they don't do it, we just have to do it. And picking the language of the government, just do it. And yeah, it was just something to add, and also to bring the digital and the analog parties together these days, to not have these two silos, the analog world and the digital world, to speak together and to have the government as a partner. But I think Martin also was telling this already. It was just something we are burning for, and also this person from this initiative told us, and it was quite nice to hear.
Thanks, Robin.
Thanks.
So ask Christian a quick clarifying question, and that was your comment about HOV EVs.
That's correct. So the HOV concept is quite well known in the world, that you're having access to a lane if you have multiple people in the car.
Mhm.
But in Norway, we also have in rush hour more and more car roads that are only for EVs with passengers. So was that
Fantastic.
clarifying? Yeah. And
Because we had too many EV cars, that was the problem. So we're starting to block the public transport.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. It seems to me that countries that have policies that are encouraging EV uptake, that's kind of like a super leveraging thing if you figure out how to have electric carpools. Jesse.
Just a quick addition to the comment about Wales. Here in the U.S., in the state of California, where I live and work, the state has passed a policy that the state will not build new capacity that increases vehicle miles traveled. That means either new roads or widening existing roads. Now, that's a state policy. It's still being implemented. There's a lot of resistance at the local level, where local cities and counties want to continue building or widening, expanding existing roads. But the state has adopted a policy similar to Wales, and it's a struggle right now between conflicting forces here in the U.S. in California.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Jesse. Our intention as the Ridesharing Institute is to push forward with efforts to increase the amount of policy attention to this whole question. And I think that the conversation here helps, using this video to inform people about what's going on elsewhere, and the ongoing conversations, I think, should be helping. It's been a fantastic discussion. I'd like to thank very much Marco for suggesting the speakers for today, Martin for a great presentation about Germany and neighboring countries, and Christian and Kira for talking about Norway and neighboring countries. What a fantastic conversation. Thank you all so much for this. I think it's powerful. I think we've just got to keep working on how we spread the message. And please, anybody, if you've listened to this and think you've got any insights into how we might better spread the message, that's critical for us as the Ridesharing Institute to work out how to do.
Yeah, thanks for having me. One question on the carpool imperative. Is there any plans to continue with that discussion and bring it forward?
You mean a follow-up perhaps to our conversation in December? As a good thought. Maybe that's one of the next sessions we'll have is collectively work on that. One of the things that we are working on is something we're calling the state of pooling. We referred to this session as the state of pooling in Germany and Norway. And what we want to do in the short term is to engage a researcher to pull together the state of pooling by country. And we're focusing initially on the OECD. If anybody has connections that might help us to develop that piece of work, we would really love to hear from you about it, because we think that naming and shaming or naming and celebrating would be a useful way of helping to bring attention to something a lot of policymakers just assume won't work. I think that's the critical thing. You guys are showing that things can work, and I think that's fantastic, and I salute you for that.